When a billionaire learned to follow. The silence at Kingsley's, Manhattan's most exclusive restaurant, was deafening. 10-year-old Lucas Montgomery, his legs trapped in metal braces, reached out trembling to Diana Johnson, the restaurant's only black waitress. The piano had just begun playing, and the boy wanted to dance. "Sir, control your son," Manager Thornton snapped. "This is not a dance hall." Richard Montgomery, billionaire owner of Montgomery Investments, felt the weight of every eye in the room. This was Lucas's first public dinner since the accident that paralyzed his legs 2 years ago, a mistake Richard vowed not to repeat. "Lucas, sit down," he ordered firmly. Diana stood frozen, her gaze shifting between the manager, the billionaire, and the boy whose hand still hung in the air. In 5 years at Kingsley's, she'd learned to become invisible. "Mr. Thornton, I'm leaving. My shift is over." She removed her apron calmly, then smiled at Lucas and took his hand. "I can't dance in an apron." Richard stood abruptly. "What do you think you're doing?" "I'm accepting an invitation, sir." Lucas took a hesitant step forward. His foot dragged painfully, the metal braces screeching. But Diana didn't guide or hurry him, she simply matched his pace. Richard watched, paralyzed by memory. His late wife Elizabeth dancing with Lucas in their living room. It's not about perfection. It's about connection. As Diana followed Lucas's clumsy steps, something changed in the boy's eyes. Fear became concentration. Shame became shy pride. For the first time since the accident, he wasn't being helped or corrected. He was leading. "Mr. Montgomery," the manager interrupted, "this will never happen again. She'll be properly disciplined." Richard remained silent as the entire restaurant waited. After 3 dance steps, Diana led Lucas back to the table. "Thank you for asking me out," she said formally. "It was an honor." As she turned to leave, Richard stopped her. "Wait, what's your full name?" "Diana Johnson, sir." He handed her his card. "My office. Tomorrow at 10 a.m. The next morning, Diana arrived at Montgomery Tower in her best outfit, a navy skirt and white blouse bought on sale. The receptionist's clinical gaze made her feel every dollar she didn't have. In Richard's office, overlooking Manhattan like a personal playground, he finally spoke. "Do you have a background?" "Bachelor's degree in child development from NYU. Incomplete master's in special education." Surprise flashed across his face. "And you work as a waitress?" "I work 3 jobs. The restaurant, a bookstore, and as a tutor." Richard opened a folder. "I did research on you. Freedom Steps. You founded that 6 years ago. A dance program for children with physical disabilities." He paused. "It's about to close due to lack of funding. I didn't come here to ask for money, Mr. Montgomery. I want you to work for me as a therapeutic companion for Lucas. I have the best specialists, but what you did yesterday." He struggled with the words. It was the first time I've seen him smile since the accident. Diana studied him carefully. Beneath the power and control, she saw a desperate, lost father. "I can pay you 5 times what you're making now." Diana stood. "No." Richard looked genuinely shocked. "You're turning down. I don't work for people who see my color or social class before my competence. And I definitely don't work for people who try to buy solutions to emotional problems." She walked to the door, then paused. "Lucas doesn't need more experts. He needs space to lead his own life." She placed a card on his desk. "Freedom Steps classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays, 4 p.m. If you'd like to bring Lucas, the first class is free." The following Wednesday, a Bentley parked outside the community center. Lucas got out slowly, followed by Richard in casual clothes, an obvious attempt to dress down that still screamed privilege. Freedom Steps operated out of an old warehouse decorated with handmade posters. Children with various mobility devices practiced free movements to a light beat. "It looks chaotic," Richard commented uncomfortably. "There is structure," Diana replied. "It's just not the one you recognize." As Diana guided Lucas to the group, an older woman entered. "Drive." Elaine Mercer, a neuroscientist retired from Harvard. "Mr. Montgomery, you've rejected my research proposal 3 times in the last 2 years," she said. Diana returned, leaving Lucas with the other children. Freedom Steps is a pilot motor rehabilitation program based on movement autonomy theory. We integrate adaptive dance with neuroscientific principles. Why do you work as a waitress if you lead a research program? Richard asked. Because people like you rejected us 3 times. The realization hit him. You were Drive Mercer's assistant on those proposals. County author, Dr. Mercer corrected. Diana had to leave college to care for her sister, but her theoretical work is groundbreaking. You knew who I was at the restaurant, Richard concluded. From the moment you walked in. When Lucas got up to dance, I recognized the opportunity to show, not tell. Reporters entered the studio. Richard tensed. Part 2 of the plan, Diana explained. We published our first results today. You used my son for a publicity stunt. Diana led him to a wall covered with photos of dozens of children, each with progress statistics. 4 months ago, when you canceled our meeting without reading the proposal, I promised myself I'd find a way. Suddenly, commotion erupted in the main room. Lucas had removed one of his braces and was trying to balance on just one support. Lucas. Richard started forward, but Diana stopped him. Wait, watch. Lucas took a deep breath, focused, then took a complete step without full support. Small, shaky, but entirely his own. The children cheered. Camera flashes exploded. Tears glistened in Richard's eyes. That's why we created Freedom Steps, Diana said softly. It's not about perfect steps. It's about first steps on your own. A reporter approached. Mr. Montgomery, could you comment on your presence here today? Is it true your foundation rejected funding this program 3 times? Richard looked at Lucas, still practicing his new step, and smiled. You know what's hardest for someone in my position? Admitting when we're wrong. Stunned silence filled the room. The Montgomery Foundation is pleased to announce full funding for Freedom Steps for the next 5 years, with one condition, that Ms. Johnson retain complete autonomy over the program. No corporate interference. 3 months later, bulldozers cleared ground for the new Freedom Steps Rehabilitation Center. Lucas showed up regularly to watch construction, and to everyone's surprise, so did Richard. I never thought you'd actually show up at board meetings, Diana commented one afternoon. I never thought I'd have to study neuroplasticity at 50, Richard replied, rubbing tired eyes. But here we are. Is this public penance or do you really care? Lucas asked to have his second brace removed last week. His previous therapist said that would be impossible for at least 2 years. But you fired her, because you told me she was wrong. And you were. At the opening ceremony 6 months later, Lucas, now wearing only a lightweight brace, led a choreographed routine with 3 other children. His movements flowed with a confidence no doctor had predicted. He doesn't need you to hold him anymore, Diana said quietly. No, Richard agreed, but he still needs me to be around. Crucial difference. A reporter approached. Mr. Montgomery, what's been the biggest lesson you've learned? Richard looked at Lucas helping a younger girl find her balance. That true leaders aren't those who guide others down the path they believe is right, but those who have the courage to follow when someone shows them a better way. A year later, Freedom Steps expanded to 3 new cities. Diana received the Pediatric Rehabilitation Innovation Award. Lucas, now using only a light cane on difficult days, enrolled in regular school and became a youth spokesperson for the program. And Richard learned the hardest lesson of all, that true power doesn't lie in controlling every move, but in knowing when to step back and let others lead the way. In a world where powerful people rarely change their perspectives, the story of Richard, Diana, and Lucas reminds us that true transformation occurs when we cross invisible boundaries. When a billionaire learns from a waitress. When a father follows in his son's footsteps. The most profound revolutions don't start with grand manifestos or billion-dollar fortunes. They start when someone has the courage to take an authentic first step, and someone else has the wisdom to follow. The most profound revolutions don't start with grand manifestos or billion-dollar fortunes. They begin quietly, often unnoticed, when someone chooses authenticity over approval and takes a first step that feels small to the world but enormous to the soul. That step isn't loud or polished, it's imperfect, vulnerable, and deeply human. Yet it carries a rare power. It makes change possible. And revolutions don't grow in isolation. For that first step to matter, someone else must recognize it, not as weakness but as courage. Someone must have the wisdom to pause, to look beyond convention and comfort, and to say, I see you. I believe in this. I will walk with you. That act of following is not submission, it is alignment. It transforms a solitary act into a shared direction. From that moment, momentum is born. One honest action invites another. Doubt gives way to trust, fear to resolve, and a quiet idea begins to ripple outward. What started as a personal decision becomes a collective movement, not because it was forced, but because it was real. History remembers the outcome as a revolution, but its true origin is always the same: a brave beginning, met by open minds, and sustained by the courage to continue, together.